What's going on, guys? Today we got a crazy video. This one just popped up on my Twitter feed, but because I can't react to videos on Twitter, I'm reacting to it here on YouTube. This is Elon Musk slaughters BBC reporter in a live interview. So this is basically Elon Musk discussing free speech and hate speech on Twitter. So this one's gonna get crazy, guys. Hit that subscribe button, check out my Patreon, and let's get it.
Free speech is meaningless unless you allow people you don't like to say things you don't like. Otherwise, it's irrelevant. And if at the point at which you lose free speech, it doesn't come back.
I think the issue some people have is that a lot of people report.
One sec, guys, before the reporter gets into it, freedom always comes first. Freedom always comes first, guys. You know, anything else, as Jesse Ventura says, freedom always comes first.
It'll come back.
I think the issue some people have is that a lot of people were brought back. I mean, some people were brought back who were previously banned for spreading things like QAnon conspiracies. You have people like Andrew Tate who were brought back, who were previously banned for things like hate speech. Do you think you prioritize freedom of speech over misinformation and hate speech?
Well, you know, who's to say that something is misinformation? Who is the arbiter of that? Is it the BBC?
You're literally asking me?
Yes.
Well, no, you are the arbiter on Twitter because you own Twitter.
Yes, I'm saying who is to say that one person's misinformation is another person's information?
That's true, guys. You know, I'm big into fitness. You know, I can say this causes heart disease, this doesn't cause cancer, this doesn't cause this, but it's all kind of studies that are really done, you know, that are kind of irrelevant. They're like population studies and stuff. It's very hard to determine what is hate speech. Of course, there's some actual definitions what hate speech is and what freedom of speech is. You know, some speech is definitely hate speech, but, you know, who is that person that decides that? You know, it's a bit of a gray area.
The point at which you say that there is this is misinformation, like who is going to decide that?
You accept that misinformation can be dangerous, that it can cause real-world harms, that it can potentially cause...
Yeah, so the point I'm trying to make is that the BBC itself has, at times, published things that are false. Do you agree that that has occurred?
I'm quite sure the BBC have said things before that turn out to not be true.
Correct.
In its, whatever it is, 100-year history, I'm quite sure.
Yes. Even if you aspire to be accurate, there are times when you will not be.
We've spoken to people.
Very good point. Very good point, guys. You know, even if you're trying to be accurate, you know, if you think something's right, it's not always the case, okay? So this is kind of a conservative versus liberal kind of argument here, right? The freedom of speech type thing. So we're going to delve into it even further.
Very recently who were involved in moderation, and they just say there's not enough people to police this stuff, particularly around hate speech in the company. Is that
what hate speech are you talking about? I mean, you use Twitter.
Right.
Do you see a rise in hate speech?
I mean,
just a personal anecdote, like what do you? I don't.
Personally, for you, I would see I get more of that kind of content, yeah, personally. But I'm not going to talk to the rest of, for the rest of Twitter.
So you see more hate speech personally?
I would say I would see more hateful content in that.
Content you don't like or hateful? What do you mean to describe a hateful thing?
Yeah, I mean, you know, just content that will solicit a reaction, something that may include something that is slightly racist or slightly sexist, those kinds of things.
So you think if something is slightly sexist, it should be banned?
No,
is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying anything. I'm
just curious. I'm trying to understand what you mean by hateful content. And I'm asking for specific examples. And you just said that if something is slightly sexist, that's hateful content. Does that mean that it should be banned?
Well, you've asked me whether...
See, this is where the freedom of speech comes into play, guys. You know, whether if it's slightly sexist, if it's slightly this or that, should it be banned? Leave in the comments down below what you guys think. You know, obviously, this reporter here is trying to discredit Elon Musk, basically trying to call him a nutcase. You know, Elon Musk is a cool guy. He's rich and, you know, he helps people, and he's in charge of Twitter now, which is a bit of a, you know, it's a bit of a minefield. But Twitter has definitely got, you know, hateful things on it. I don't think it's gone up. You know, what the reporter is trying to say is that the hate speech has gone up since Elon Musk has taken over, basically kind of trying to call him some sort of, like, I don't know, right-wing conspiracy guy, which it's kind of unfair, guys. This is really unfair to kind of call him out on this. You have to go very deep into the line of thinking when you think about what he's trying to do here. He's trying to basically discredit Twitter completely because Elon Musk is now in charge. But, you know, the guys run multi-billion-dollar companies and stuff. I'm pretty sure he knows how to run a company like Twitter, you know, which is kind of just, you know, talk on the internet. Has it gone up, guys? I mean, hell, let's do a study to prove if it's gone up or not. I'd love to see a study on that, but there's no real study to show whether the hate speech has gone up or not. I have seen hate speech years ago, and I've seen it recently. So, you know, has it gone up or not? You can't really tell, right? And specifically, you know, in terms of what my experience has been, very little. I haven't really seen anything like that's really hateful. Even to give an anecdotal case, I mean, I recently saw some stuff on Hurler, calling him whatever, some insult, some racial insult, which that's probably hate speech. But apart from that, I haven't really seen anything other than that. So, you know, that's just my personal anecdotes. But let's see what Elon Musk has to say.
I feed, whether it's got less or more. I'd say it's got slightly more.
That's why I'm asking for examples.
Yeah, you see, guys, this is where it comes into contention. You can't just say it's got slightly more and not really even give one example, which he doesn't do the whole thing. It's quite embarrassing, but that's what I'm saying, guys. Do a study. You know, if we want to find out if it's got more or less, just do a study on it. But I don't know how can you do that study, right?
Can you name one example?
I honestly don't use. Honestly, I
You
don't.
can't name a single example.
I'll tell you
This is
why, because I
bad.
don't actually use that for you feed anymore because I just don't particularly like it.
you said
Actually,
you-
a lot of people.
He said I don't use that, but he just says he uses Twitter. Now he's saying he doesn't use Twitter. This is a bit shady. I think this reporter's trying to get clicks here, boys.
A lot of people are quite similar. I only look at
hang on
my
a second.
following.
You said you've seen more hateful content, but you can't name a single example, not even one.
I'm not sure I've used that feed for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and
Well, then how did you see the hateful content?
Yeah, what?
Because I've been using it. I've been using Twitter since you've taken it over for the last 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen that for you hateful content. And I'm asking for one example.
Right.
And you can't give a single one.
And I'm saying
Then I say so that you don't know what you're talking about.
really.
Yes, because you can't give me a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet.
This is embarrassing, guys. You know, not to take a shot at the British government, or I'm sure this guy is part of the government. British government, British people try and use that really posh kind of accent to kind of, you know, to show how much posher and better and more intelligent they are than the Americans, but it doesn't work like that. You know that is, guys. Like, you know, Americans, shout out to my Americans, man. At least they're kind of trying to defend freedom of speech, you know, Elon Musk and stuff. Whereas British people, I mean, you know what I mean? Or not the entire of the population, obviously, taking a stab at that being from Ireland, but the government definitely, yeah, it's not great, guys. You know, this is a bad interview.
And yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well,
That's false.
no. What I claimed,
just lied.
No. What I claimed was there are many organisations that say that kind of information is on the rise. Now, whether it has on my
Give me
feed
one
or
example.
not. I mean, right, and
Literally
if you
can't
look at
name
something
one.
like the Strategic Dialogue Institute in the UK, they will say that. So
Look, people will say all sorts of nonsense. I'm literally asking for a
Right.
single example, and you can't name one.
right, and as I've already said, I don't use that feed. But
Well, then how would you know that?
I don't think this is getting anywhere.
You literally said you experienced more hateful content, and then couldn't name a single example.
Right, and as I said,
That's absurd.
I haven't actually looked at that feed.
Then how would you know
this
there's hateful content?
Because I'm saying that's what I saw a few weeks ago. I can't give you an exact example. Let's move on. We only have a certain amount of time. COVID misinformation. You changed the COVID misinformation
Has
rules.
BBC changed its COVID misinformation?
The BBC does not set the rules on Twitter, so I'm asking you.
No, I'm talking about the BBC's misinformation about COVID.
I'm literally asking you about, you changed the labels, the COVID misinformation labels. There used to be a policy, it then disappeared. Why do that?
Well, COVID is no longer an issue.
Right.
Does the BBC hold itself at all responsible for misinformation regarding masking and side effects of vaccinations, and not reporting on that at all? And what about the fact that the BBC was put under pressure by the British government to change its editorial policy? Are you aware of that?
This is not an interview about the BBC.
Oh, you thought it wasn't?
I see now why you've done Twitter Spaces. I am not a representative of the BBC's editorial policy. I want to make that clear. Let's talk about something else. If you want to
I'm
talk about the
interviewing you
BBC,
too.
all right. Let's talk about something else.
You weren't expecting that.
So, interesting couple points I just want to point out before the end, guys, if you bear with me. So he said basically there, like, why aren't you talking about the sea anymore? And the reason why that is, guys, is because it's kind of over now. I know there's a few cases popping up now, and hopefully it doesn't continue, but for the majority parts, it's over, right? Like the terrorist threat from, let's say, September 11th, 2001, that's kind of gone now. So nobody's really talking about the terrorist threat from 2001. That was, that threat of the flu was in 2020. That's over now. So he's trying to update the policies on Twitter, okay? And the reason he's doing this, guys, not a lot of people understand. I don't really follow Twitter too intellectually or too like in depth, but that's where the majority of young people and older people, and actually a lot of people just in general, get their news from. And what he's trying to do here is trying to discredit Elon Musk from, kind of trying to call him a reputable news source, okay? So that's why BBC he's kind of lashing with the BBC. There's a ton of different newspapers that would clash with, let's say, Twitter and online spaces. The Financial Times, there's huge ones, guys. The Times, the New York Times, all those big American ones. What's the one that, Amazon owned? The Washington Times, something like that. But they all own those different newspapers. So they're basically clashing with Elon Musk. And it's kind of funny to see that, Twitter and the online sphere, spaces, he said, is kind of blowing up now, and a lot of the the traditional news media is kind of falling to the wayside. Not entirely, they're still quite big. Obviously, they're still the biggest, but online news media where people get their news, like Twitter and stuff, is blowing up, guys. So that got 1 million views in 6 hours on YouTube. Now on Twitter, it's got like 20 million views. I want to say Twitter's just going crazy, but I can't upload videos from YouTube to Twitter, from Twitter, because last time I did that, I did a guy arm wrestling. Shout out to, who was that got me banned for a week? The guy that does the live streaming. He's friends with Tate. The young guy, I can't even remember his name now. Did too much weight today. He has no oxygen in the brain. But his bodyguard was arm wrestling and he broke his arm. Aiden Ross. And he banned me, so I can't upload videos from Twitter, guys. But hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. I love you guys all. Tell me in the comments down below what you guys think. Was he trying to discredit Twitter and the news sources there? I think he probably was, guys. I love you all, man. And let's have a little debate in the comment section down below. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Peace.